George Galair, agus Neil Moore an Gaelga agus galore Naira I have no ability to speak Irish, unfortunately, I'm sorry. But one tradition I do have an ability to get involved in is cutting turf. I am PRO of the Turf Cutters and Contractors Association. I was passing through here today to make up for a mistake that I made last week by putting up posters in English out here, so we came back and we changed them all into Irish. But on the way back I bumped into a relation of Joe O'Toole, and I was told that there was a problem here today with cutting your turf. I rang Michael Fitzmaurice, chairperson of the Turf Cutters and Contractors Association, and we kind of flipped a coin in our head as to who'd be coming here. Michael has gone to a meeting on water meters in Tuam, so I'm down here with you today. We keep hearing this spin and this rubbish and this lie about how it's only a few bogs. I'm sure you've heard it over and over again. And the "it's only a few bogs" is said for one reason and one reason only. Shut up complaining, don't you have it good? We're not trying to take them all off you. The TCCA for years now have been saying that those 53 so-called SACs are only the thin end of the wedge. We warned that there were hundreds of NHAs coming. We warned that down the line, under the whole climate change directive, that they would attempt to stop all bogs. When Paddy Concannon, a hero of mine and many turf cutters, many years ago, back in 1992, warned people about this, the main thing people said about Paddy Concannon is, God, that man is intelligent. He must have gone senile, because to come out with crazy stuff like that, there must be something wrong with them. But guess what? Unfortunately, he has been proven correct. And that is one of the reasons why you're here today. Because it does involve all bogs eventually, and the only way we'll win this is if we keep cutting. Now I know in this country we're starting to get used to losing, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but when it comes to your hospital, if they want to close your A&E, I can jump up and down, and I can scream, and I can complain in the Dáil, but ultimately they shut our A&E in Roscommon. I can complain about them closing your schools, and I put down an act or a bill in the Dáil to try and preserve small schools, but ultimately if they want to do it, they can do it. This isn't being defeatist, it's being realistic. If they want to close your post offices, as long as they have a majority in Dáil Éireann, they can close your post offices. But the news gets better from here on. If they want to stop you cutting turf in your bog, there's only one person can stop you, and that is yourselves. Because while you can't go in and kick in the door of Roscommon A&E, and I can't pretend I'm a doctor and a nurse, and I can't run it, I can still go into my bog in Clune Chambers and cut my turf, so long as I'm alive. And if I have to pull it out with me bare hands, that is exactly what I'll be doing. Now, Minister Deenahan, in particular to these bogs, was on my local radio station, Shannonside, about 4 months ago. And he was asked the question via text message that we sent in, were ye notified? Were people notified about this? People will notify you about a wedding, they'll notify you about a christening, they'll notify you about a court case. But did they notify people about this? Well, Minister Deenahan's answer was this, and I can't see how it'll stand up in court. Probably. Now that's all very well in the cards, Bergad, but it doesn't work out very strong legally. But more in... Oh, well, he's our genius, we're very lucky, and his grandfather would be proud of him. He said he was a turf cutter. His grandfather would turn in his grave. But the reality is this, you cannot go and make decisions like this without first talking to people. And after talking to people, if they say they don't want it, then it shouldn't happen. Now, am I against conservation, or am I some sort of environmental guerrier? No, I'm not. I have looked at the facts on this, and there's enough for us, and there's enough for the birds and the bees and whatever snails are there. We can do both. We put together a plan in the TCCA that would have left 98% of these so-called SACs, the bogs that we're on, to conservation forever. all we were looking for was 2%, which would do us for another 400 years. Now you have to say that was reasonable on our parts, or in some people's cases, you were a bit too bloody reasonable. Did they accept it? No, they didn't. They voted it through Dáil Éireann, and when I was being carried out shoulder high out of Dáil Éireann, all I could think was, how do I tell the 4,000 people here that they're going to shaft ye? Because everyone was celebrating, and I can't blame them for doing it, because you've got to trust people who run the country. But unfortunately, yet again, they proved you cannot trust them. So how do we solve this? Well, the first thing that has to be achieved is we have to win our fight on the so-called SSEs. We have always said we'll fight it on the bogs, we'll fight it in the Dáil, and we'll fight it in the courts. Well, I cut my turf there last week, and the Gardaí came in a couple of days later and warned people that no one else should cut their turf. Well, I went down to my local Garda station and I told them I had news for them. If it's illegal for the rest of them cut turf, it should be illegal for me. So come down to me bog and see me turf cut. Well, they haven't come yet. And the reason why they won't come is they might try a lot in this country, but no one, I think, would ever be that stupid to try and jail and criminalise someone for cutting turf. Now, has anyone yet been criminalised? All these years later, thousands of hoppers later, millions of slain pieces of turf cut later. Has anyone been prosecuted? No. Has anyone had their single payment taken off them? No. Now, they've been warned about it and they've been threatened about it, but the bully usually doesn't follow through. Legally, where we are at the moment is there has been a stay put on the prosecution. Now, this is new language to me. It became very complicated to go turf when you had to learn legal language, but there has been a stay put on the prosecution for the 2 Curry turf cutters, and we are waiting for the government to come back with their evidence. We believe that they have not put this law into place correctly, and we believe we'll win that. But in your case here, they cannot say, it was Europe that made us do it. It was not Europe that made them do this. It was the Sean Kynes of the world who made them do this. I'm not trying to particularly single anyone out, but these are the people you've got to go to. You can come to me and you can say change it, but I am not part of the majority. But Fine Gael and Labour TDs can change this overnight. Now, while they have said they're de-designating some NHAs, my suspicion is that they've only said that for 2 reasons. 1, there's an election coming up, and 2, they have other plans. Wind turbines for them. Now, while we may need to go to court for our bogs, ye can win this by pressurising your local elected politicians from government parties. And I'm not trying to have a go at any particular party. Whoever is in government at the moment, and it happens to be Labour and Fine Gael, they are the ones to tell. When they come to your door, ask them, do you have a problem with me cutting my turf? If you don't, sign it on the line. Get them to write it down for you, in blood if possible. Because remember, before the last general election, we were told by people like John O'Mahony, a man who defends our great culture of Gaelic football, but doesn't seem to have as much respect for our tradition of turf cutting. He said, go ahead and cut your turf. Now, before the cock had crowed, 2 weeks after the general election, the same man was on the radio, calling us bad citizens and calling us criminals. I'll finish by saying this, and I'll quote a great man, former president of Sinn Féin, Father Michael O'Flanagan, the only bit of political dynasty that I have in my household. He's an uncle of my father. He was one of the first men ever to speak in the Dáil. And he went out to Clonarcoo Bog early in the last century near Sligo. They tried to stop the people cutting their turf. He went up on the pulpit. He said, next week, come out to the bog with me and bring your turf spades. I don't know where he got the word spade for a Republican, but he called it a spade. And he said, I'll bring mine too. And the following week, he went out there and he cut his turf, in spite of the police, in spite of the church being down on him. And he had this great saying, we have been lied to for too long. We have been quiet for too long. He didn't say this, I'm saying this.
Stop being quiet. Stop being silent. Blow a storm next Friday at the local elections. Anyone but the ones who are betraying you. Anyone. I'm not telling you to vote for me. I'm not here for that. Do that if you want. But one thing for sure, don't vote for those curs. Don't vote for those Amadons. And don't vote for the own shops that try to represent us and fail us. Thank you. August.